Okay, so we're going to take another step into the deep end. We're kind of getting up to our ankles and understanding your chart. The water is kind of getting up past our ankles. So we're going to just do a little overview about the keynotes before we move on to the energy centers. And then we're going to come back and do a deeper dive into the keynotes as we get up to our waist in the water of the human design chart. So what are the keynotes? The keynotes are our shortcut to navigating your chart. As I mentioned, Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design, sort of put all of these keynotes together so that we didn't have to spend decades trying to figure all of this out. So this is kind of the relax and just get the big picture aspect of your human design chart. You may not be able to see Mariah Carey's keynotes down here, so I put them up a little bigger so you can see them. And you can see that the keynotes involve type, conditioning, theme, strategy, which are under type, profile, and all of this information under here, which I'll explain very briefly when we get to profile. Then there's definition and there's authority. And it can either be inner authority or outer authority, and you'll learn what the difference is as we go. Okay, let's go up to our thighs in the waters of the human design chart, of understanding your human design chart, and look at the energy centers and why they matter. So the energy centers represent the various different types of energy that humans use to function in life. They're related to the Hindu chakra system. And there are two different experiences of these energies that you can have. When the energy centers are colored in, they're known as defined. And this is the energy that you have to work with consistently. You function from these energies in a consistent way. When they're undefined, they're not colored in, or they're white, and these are the energies that are inconsistent to you. You work with the energy in an inconsistent way because you actually don't have that type of energy hardwired into you. You actually have to kind of rely on other people or your environment to bring that energy in. And it's not something that you're really designed to operate off of or to use on a consistent basis. And in addition to that, when an energy center is undefined, it's actually a place where you have the potential to become very wise about how to use that energy, because you're sort of observing it. You're receiving it from others. You can kind of feel it out if you're conscious of what you're feeling and you're aware of what you're feeling. And then you can let it go, let it move through you and get the information. Let's say, you're absorbing or you're bringing in emotional energy. You can feel that emotional energy very deeply and know what the other person is feeling, or feel what the other person is feeling. That's just an example. But it's not something that you're designed to use in a sustainable way or to work with in a sustainable way. In other words, it's not really you. What's defined is you. What's undefined is not really you. It's the energy that you borrow. Here's a little assignment for you, and you can do this actually right here with this blank body graph. Take a look at your chart and circle the energy centers that are colored in on your chart. You may actually even want to color those energy centers in here on this blank body graph. And this is where you can begin to identify what energies that you process in a consistent way. This is where you have those defined centers and you have consistent access to that energy. You work with that energy in a sustainable and consistent way. And this is how you show up to the world, what you can count on about yourself. So stop the recording and color those in. Okay, now that you have the defined centers colored in, take another look at your chart and use a different color this time. Color in the energy centers that are white on your chart. This is where you're taking in energy from others and you're feeling it strongly, you're amplifying it, and you can potentially think that you have to act on that energy. This is where you actually can get distracted from the energy that you're designed to function with, from your strengths, from what you show up with, from who you really are, and think that you are this person who has this other energy that is not really yours, that you're borrowing. So take a moment to go ahead and look at your chart and color in all of the undefined centers. And you can use this for reference as we go through each of the centers to really kind of understand what you're taking in through the white areas, through the white centers in your chart, and what you're giving out or what you're functioning from in the defined areas in your chart. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 9 energy centers in the human design chart, and this could be a whole year-long course if we wanted it to be. So bear with me. I'm just going to give you the overview. You can use this as your foundation for further self-study, for the next 7 years of deepening your understanding of how you're defined, who you are through your definition, and what energies you're borrowing, what energies distract you from being who you really are. And just know that this is the first step. It's not the last step. It's not even the second step or the middle step. All right, so let's start at the top here with the head center. The head center is the center for inspiration and imagination. So this is the center that deals with imagination, with bringing in higher consciousness, with being inspired, and it filters inspiration. It actually filters the neutrino streams, the information in the neutrino stream. It filters all of that information and inspiration down through the head and into the ajna, which is the center for how you think and how you conceptualize information. So I like to kind of see these channels here as sort of like file cabinets, and you're filing away all of this inspiration into a pattern of thought. Now, if you're defined, it's a fixed pattern. If you're undefined, it can be any kind of pattern that shows up in your environment at the moment. Now, moving down one more, we see the throat center. This is the gearbox of the entire human design body graph. All energy in the human design chart leads to the throat. The throat is a center for expression and manifestation. So if you have a defined throat, you have the ability to express yourself in a consistent way. And usually it's in a way that can be understood through the defined gates or channels that you have off of your throat center. If you have one of these centers, the emotional solar plexus, the will center, the sacral center, or the root center, one of the motorized centers connected to your throat, then you have the energy depending on your strategy for your type, or depending on your energy type, you may have the energy to initiate either conversations or actions depending on what your energy type is. Moving down to the diamond, that would be roughly in the center of the chest. This is the center of self, or it's also known as the G center. It's the center for love, identity, and direction. So if it's defined, you have a fixed sense of how you love, who you are, and your direction in life. If it's undefined, you have a lot of variability in how you experience love, how you show up in your identity, and what directions that you can take in life. The will center is also known as the heart center, is this little triangle just to the right and underneath of the G center. The will center is the center for willpower and ego. And it's not ego in a negative sense. It's ego as in your ego strength, your self-esteem, your sense of your own value and worth. If you're will center is defined, you have consistent willpower. You have a consistent sense of value and worth. And if it's undefined, and most people have an undefined will center, by the way, you have an inconsistent sense of willpower. Therefore, it's not healthy for you to make promises because you might not be able to follow through. Moving down to the Sacral Center, the second from the bottom, this is the center where you generate energy for work and activity. It's the center for creativity and procreation. It's about doing the sustainable work, ongoing work necessary to create the family, take care of the family, realize your direction in life, and ultimately express who you are. If you have a defined sacral center, you have the energy to work consistently at things that you find satisfying. If you have an undefined sacral center, your energy for work is very inconsistent. You're not even designed to work in the way that we perceive how work should be done in the world. And that's a whole subject in itself as well, so we'll just leave it at that. The solar plexus, or the emotional solar plexus, is to the right of the sacral center. And this is the center for emotional awareness. It's a motorized center that kind of drives emotion through the body in waves of energy that move up and down. So if you are emotionally defined, if your emotional center is defined, you ride up and down in your emotions. You know, some people call that being in a good mood, being in a bad mood. You'll find that there's a consistent rhythm or a pattern to your emotional waves or your emotional ups and downs. If you're undefined in the emotional solar plexus, you are taking in other people's emotions. You have the ability to, or the potential to, become very wise about their emotions, but they're not your emotions. However, you may feel that they are, and they affect you very deeply. This is the center, if it's undefined, that would indicate that you're an emotional empath. The spleen center to the left of the sacral is the center for intuition, instinct, timing, awareness in the moment. And the spleen center, when it's defined, gives you a consistent way of dealing with fear, dealing with timing or understanding timing. You have a consistent sense of timing, and you also have a consistent sense of vitality. You radiate vitality. If you have an undefined spleen center, you're going to experience vitality in an inconsistent way. You're going to experience other people's levels of vitality in an amplified way, and you're likely to be insecure about your own survival and intuition. The root center, which is the center at the bottom, is the center for adrenalized stress and pressure. This is a center that we look at to see how you are fundamentally designed to manage stress. If you have a defined root center, you probably work very well under pressure. You can build up pressure in your root and release it to get something done. If you have an undefined root center, you're probably always feeling pressurized by either the pressure you put on yourself, the stress you put on yourself, or the stress and pressure that you feel from other people. You're really not designed to work under pressure. So there you have it, the 9 energy centers: the head, the ajna, the throat, the G center, the will center, the emotional solar plexus, the sacral center, the spleen, and the root. I encourage you to go back to this section and really review it at your leisure. Take notes on it as it pertains to your defined centers and your undefined centers.